How you guys all doing today? Welcome back to the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. I'm your host, Manny Maradiege. Today is September 24th here, already past Week 3 of the NFL. Looking forward to Week 4, but we can't move on without talking about the games last night. There was two games on Monday Night Football last night. One very good one and another one not so entertaining, but we're still going to talk about it. We're going to go over Jayden Daniels and his stellar performance against the Cincinnati Bengals. Also, the other game, Josh Allen and the Bills dominating the Jaguars, sending them to 0-3. Plus, mentioning another still undefeated team, the Pittsburgh Steelers, and Justin Fields, impressing yet again in their victory against the Los Angeles Chargers. All that and more coming up on today's show. Make sure to stick around for all of our topics on today's show. But before we get started on the first segment, I'd like to remind you guys, if you have any questions during the show, we want to hear about it. Your input is a big part of what makes this show great, makes it more interactive and more conversational, and we thrive on your energy and insights. So whether it's a quick comment, a thoughtful question, or just an opinion you want to share about anything in the NFL or anything I say, please drop it in the chat box. Now, if you want to make it absolutely sure that I see it and that your message features on today's show, there's an easy way to go about that. Just use the super chat feature available to you guys now. Just click the $sign at the bottom of the chat box to send in your super chat. This way, it guarantees that your message gets on the air, and it's also a fantastic way to support our channel. We rely on you guys and your support to bring you guys the sports content that you love, and we appreciate it every time you guys are able to do that. So go ahead and let us know what you're thinking. Hit the super chat button, and let's keep this show as interactive and as exciting as possible. Still, you have the alternative option to use the GSMCpodcast.net link to tip and donate and leave any comments and questions there if you do prefer that alternate method. So go ahead and use that, or the new super chat feature as well, to help us out and feature on the show. I always appreciate when you guys have anything to say, ask me any questions, or just make a comment on anything you saw over the weekend. There's a lot of interesting things going on so early on in the NFL, and starting just from last night, a tale of two games. We're going to get to both of them, but we're going to start off with what I thought stole the show last night on both games. In both games, I thought the best game of the night was between the Commanders and the Cincinnati Bengals, right? The Commanders get away with a 38-33 win over the Bengals. Washington now goes to 2-1, actually leading the NFC East right now, and Cincinnati fall to 0-3, failing to win all of their first three games, 2 at home, now sending them to 0-2 at home and 0-1 on the road out of those 3 games. But like I said, Jayden Daniels, the story of this game for me, the star of the show, and not just this game, right? Because you're including Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and then when you combine it with the other game, essentially all on the same night, right? Josh Allen, James Cook, Trevor Lawrence, all these guys in both games. I thought Jayden Daniels, to me, really culminated his performance in the best story, right? If that makes sense, because last night he was 21 of 23, 254 yards through the air, and 2 passing touchdowns, his first of his career. 12 carries also and 39 rushing yards on top of that, and another rushing touchdown as well. He accounted for 3 touchdowns last night, and very, very impressed with what I saw. Not just from Jayden, right? He was the conductor of everything, but really the offense that I saw from Washington was very impressive, right? The running game was very good. I thought some guys stepped up when they needed to. Luke McCaffrey looked pretty well. Zach Ertz becoming more of a reliable option for Jayden Daniels, it looks like. And Terry McLaurin, right? We can't go without mentioning him. He finally had that big game that the Commanders fans, that everybody really was waiting for him to have with this new quarterback, seeing how their connection, finally exploded. And both of them had a large role to take in this game. But just overall, this offense was something that I wasn't expecting. 38 points put up on the Bengals, right? You could say that's impressive for the Commanders, and that's what I'm trying to say. But likewise, a bit of me can't go without mentioning the Bengals' just defense, right? Their Defense, again, did not impress or look like it had any sort of resistance, especially because Washington's offense scored touchdowns on their first 4 drives to establish a 28-13 lead at one point. And from that point, you look at the Commanders' defense overall, and what they have not been able to do essentially is stopping the run or just creating any sort of resistance, like I said, right? Because against the run last night, it was not that great of a performance. And you look at all 3 games as well. Against New England, they gave up 170 yards rushing to Ramondre Stevenson. Most of that went to. Then also against the Chiefs, it was another 149 rushing yards. I think it was 90 to Isaiah Pacheco as the leading rusher. And just last night, 108 rushing yards as well to the Washington Commanders. So, we always talk about, or the predominant defense that we talk about and criticize is the Cowboys for their run defense. But I think now, looking at the last 3 games, Washington, and I know they didn't have their defensive tackle playing last night, which was huge, right? Because he's right in the middle of everything. But even still, I haven't been that impressed with what I've seen from Cincinnati overall. And that, kind of goes back into the fact that Cincinnati, yes, they can put up points. They didn't go away, to give them credit, right? They didn't go away and just sort of lie down, being down 28-13. Joe Burrow still on the night was 29 for 38, 324 yards, and 3 touchdowns. It was great to see him connect with Jamar Chase on 2 instances for those 2 touchdowns. He had 6 receptions, 118 yards, and the secondary really wasn't holding up too great against Jamar in that passing game, but they made some timely stops, forced the Bengals to kick some field goals. They didn't look great in the red zone either, so that's a bit alarming from that side of the ball as well. But they had a field goal. They missed the field goal as well, the Bengals did. Evan McPherson pulled it a little bit wide, so they had that missed opportunity, and then not being able to stop the Commanders. We've seen it already on a few instances where these offenses, when they're clicking, it's a game of runs. Whoever gets hot in a certain game or over a certain period, they end up looking very well. And that's what the Commanders did in this game. You look at the Saints against the Cowboys, the Saints against the Panthers as well. The Panthers just recently in their game against the Raiders just this past week, they got hot to start the game, and then, they never looked back. So it seems like that's a growing theme right now, starting off fast. And it's not breaking news, but it feels like now more than ever, teams are starting fast and are really putting their foot down on establishing these leads. And I think the Commanders not only were able to do that through Jayden Daniels, and that's a great sight to see, right? Because up until this point, he had not thrown a touchdown. And while the Cincinnati Bengals offense was right there with them, keeping up with them, this offense for the Commanders and Jayden Daniels as well, I felt the bigger moments of the game, whereas the Bengals, kind of struggled in some of those, right? You talk about the red zone offense that they kind of stuttered in. The Commanders on the other side, right from the beginning, you saw them go for it on some early 4th down, some early 4th and shorts. They ended up converting on those, and also some big 3rd downs down the stretch of the game. They were also able to convert, and none bigger, right? None bigger than that 3rd down conversion. 0 coverage on the backside for the Bengals. The Bengals needed a stop at that point in the game. You saw, if you were watching the game, you knew Geno Stone was going to come in from the right side and have a free shot essentially on Jayden Daniels, and Terry McLaurin was going up against Dax Hill. He had to beat him. You'd like to go to your best receiver in that instance. That's what Jayden Daniels did. He sat in the pocket. Credit to him, right? For as much stick as he might get for his slight frame or anything like that, he did not blink. He did not, kind of cringe down or just kind of shy away from the hit. He stood in there, stared down Geno Stone, and waited until the last possible second to throw that perfect ball down the right sideline to Terry McLaurin, and that essentially sealed the game, right? And this is the first breakout performance we've seen from these highly drafted quarterbacks, right? Caleb struggled a little bit. Drake May obviously not playing. Bo Nix won his first game, but I still think people aren't too convinced with his performances yet, at least not to the level of Jayden Daniels, right? And this is a big win for them because they were obviously the underdog going into this on the road in Cincinnati, and now you get this win and lead the division essentially. And not only that, you get this breakout performance from Jayden, and it infuses a lot of confidence now going forward in the fans, in the players, that we have a legitimate quarterback now, a legitimate face leader of this franchise that makes a world of difference in these teams, in these locker rooms, right? When you know you have a guy that you can rely upon to do superhuman things sometimes with some of the throws and accuracy. He was 21 for 23. That's a single season record for a rookie in his first year. So special display from Jayden Daniels. And then just lastly here, to talk about the Bengals, I talked about how their defense is worrying. The worries I had about them in the offseason, where they didn't address the corner position, they didn't really address anywhere else to kind of bring in some more talent on the defensive line or to the linebacker position. They have Dax Hill playing at corner opposite of Cam Taylor-Britt, and Dax Hill's an all-right player, but he's not a corner. He's a safety. He was drafted out of Michigan to be a safety, and now having him out there, I don't think that really fits on a championship-level defense. And Cam Taylor-Britt is all right. He's a good player, but still, you saw him get beat on that long ball to Terry McLaurin. He's all right to be their number one corner, but I just feel like those worries, those non-addressed issues in the offseason are sort of catching up to them right now. And it's interesting how this dynamic has changed, right? Because before, when Joe Burrow got there, this defense was actually very good, very underrated. You go back to that performance against the Titans where Joe Burrow got sacked 9 times, and this defense still held on for them to come back and win that game. But now, Joe Burrow is clearly better, right? This offense is clearly very good in terms of putting up points, but now the defense has flipped, and now they just can't seem to stop anything that is hit right at them. So that is a big point of it. Again, DJ Reader was not there, or he actually moved on to the Detroit Lions, another big loss for them. So that is something that they're going to have to deal with. Starting fast is going to have to be essential for them. They can't have those 3-and-outs or just have their offense stall early on, because you just don't know about this defense, right? You just don't know who and what their MO is going to be, right? Because they have good pass rushers in Sam Hubbard and Trey Hendrickson, but once you go down, like we've said about the Cowboys in many instances, your pass rush can't really, just fully focus on the quarterback, right? When you know that they're running the ball very well, you have to pull all your focus to that, and then once you do that, you might be over-aggressive, and they hit you with play action, and then everything is just kind of whirling at that point for that defense. So they have to kind of get that under wraps, kind of focus on stopping the run most of all. And, they play the Panthers next week. I'm not going to talk any sort of smack on the Panthers. They just put up 30-plus points on the Raiders. I picked the Raiders to win that game. So I don't know. I don't know what to think of this Bengals team overall. They're 0-3. Yeah, it doesn't look great, but they can't lose to the Panthers. I'm not going to pick anything yet. We're going to save that till later in the week, but if they lose to the Panthers, man, like that is something. I don't know if I'd be more impressed with the Panthers or more disappointed with the Bengals, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But for right now, we're going to move on to the other Monday Night Football game that was on last night. Not as entertaining, but still having a lot to talk about, with the Bills dominating the Jaguars, Josh Allen putting on yet another show, whereas Trevor Lawrence, not so much the same. So we're going to get into all of that after our first break. You're listening to the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast.